Dr. Maya Johnson stared out the window as passengers filed onto the aircraft. This flight to Chicago was more than just another business trip. As a senior corporate attorney at Wilson and Reed, she was about to lead negotiations for a $280 million acquisition that could cement her path to partnership. She adjusted her navy blazer and checked her watch. In 12 hours, she would be sitting across from executives from Pinnacle Holdings, finalizing terms that had taken months to arrange. Maya had prepared meticulously, reviewing documents late into the night for weeks. "Excuse me," a flight attendant appeared beside her seat. "I think you might be in the wrong section." Maya looked up, momentarily confused. "I'm in 3A, that's what's on my boarding pass." She reached for her phone to display her ticket. The flight attendant, whose name tag read Karen, glanced at it quickly. "First class is for priority customers," she said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Yes, I'm aware," Maya replied calmly. "I'm a platinum member. I've been upgraded." Karen nodded and moved on, but something about the interaction left Maya uneasy. She noticed the flight attendant hadn't questioned the older white man across the aisle or the couple seated in front of her. 10 minutes later, another crew member approached. "Ma'am, can I see your boarding pass again?" Maya showed her ticket once more. "Is there a problem?" "Just routine checks," the attendant said before walking away. By the third check within 30 minutes, Maya's patience was wearing thin. The plane was now fully boarded, and she had been singled out repeatedly while other passengers settled in undisturbed. When Karen returned with yet another request to verify her ticket, Maya asked directly, "I've shown my boarding pass multiple times. Why am I being repeatedly questioned when no one else is?" The question seemed to trigger something in Karen's demeanor. "There's no need to get aggressive," she said loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear. "I'm not being aggressive," Maya replied, keeping her voice even. "I'm simply asking why I'm being treated differently." A male flight attendant joined them now. "What seems to be the problem here?" Before Maya could explain, Karen cut in. "She's being disruptive and questioning our procedures." Several passengers looked up from their books and devices. A woman across the aisle spoke up. "She hasn't been disruptive at all. You keep coming back to check her ticket." The male attendant ignored the comment. "Ma'am, if you can't comply with crew instructions, we'll have to ask you to deplane." Maya felt her heart racing but kept her composure. "I have complied. I've shown my ticket 4 times now. I'm simply asking why I'm being singled out." The situation escalated quickly. The captain was called, a brief discussion happened in the galley, and suddenly 2 airport security officers appeared in the cabin. "This passenger needs to come with us," the male attendant announced, pointing at Maya. "On what grounds?" Maya asked, her legal training kicking in despite her shock. "The captain has final authority on this aircraft, and he's determined you're being uncooperative." As Maya gathered her belongings, she noticed a young man in row 5 recording the incident on his phone. Others looked uncomfortable or confused. "This isn't right," an elderly woman said as Maya was escorted out. Walking through the terminal in humiliation, Maya's mind raced. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was being removed from a flight operated by SkyRoute Airlines, a subsidiary of the very conglomerate involved in tomorrow's deal. What she didn't know yet was how this moment of injustice would completely transform the negotiation she had spent months preparing for. Maya stood in the terminal, her carry-on bag beside her, trying to process what had just happened. Airport security had escorted her all the way to the main concourse, treating her as if she were a security threat rather than a paying first-class passenger. "Ma'am, you'll need to contact customer service if you want to book another flight," one officer said flatly before walking away. Maya's hands trembled slightly as she pulled out her phone. She had 4 missed calls from her law firm and an email from the client asking for pre-meeting confirmation. The reality of her situation hit her with full force. She had been publicly humiliated, and now she might miss the most important meeting of her career. At the customer service desk, a long line stretched across the terminal. Maya took her place, watching the minutes tick by. Her flight was already pushing back from the gate. Every minute she stood in line was another minute lost. "This is ridiculous," a voice said behind her. Maya turned to see a middle-aged man in a business suit. "I was on your flight. What they did to you was completely wrong." "Thank you," Maya said quietly. "I recorded some of it," he continued, lowering his voice. Several of us did. That crew was out of line. Maya felt a mix of gratitude and embarrassment. I appreciate you saying that. The line moved slowly. Maya tried calling her firm again, finally reaching her assistant. They did what? Her assistant gasped. That's horrible, Maya. Let me book you on the next flight immediately. The partners need to know about this delay. By the time Maya reached the counter, she learned the next direct flight to Chicago was fully booked. The earliest option would get her there at 11 p.m., far too late for any preparation. There's a flight on United leaving in 40 minutes with one seat left, the agent offered. I'll take it, Maya said, her professional mask firmly back in place despite the churning in her stomach. As she rushed to the new gate, her phone buzzed with notifications. The videos were already circulating online. #flying while black was trending, with her humiliation becoming the latest example of discrimination in the travel industry. Maya turned her phone to airplane mode, unable to process this new public dimension to her private ordeal. She needed to focus on getting to Chicago and salvaging the deal. The United flight boarded without incident, though Maya noticed how she double-checked her seat number before sitting, how she tensely awaited each passing flight attendant. The confidence she had carried for years in professional settings had been shaken in just 30 minutes on that other plane. Midway through the flight, she allowed herself to check her messages again. What she saw made her breath catch. The senior partner had texted, "Troubling videos circulating. Call immediately when you land." The client's message was worse. "Concerning situation with your travel today. Need to discuss impact on tomorrow's meeting." But it was an email from a journalist that truly captured the magnitude of what was happening. "Dr. Johnson, I'm reaching out regarding the incident on SkyRoute Airlines today. Are you aware that SkyRoute is owned by Pinnacle Holdings, the company involved in tomorrow's acquisition deal? Would you be willing to comment on this connection?" Maya stared at her screen, the pieces falling into place. She wasn't just a random passenger who had been profiled and removed. She was the attorney about to help close a $280 million deal for the very company that owned the airline that had just humiliated her. She looked out the window at the clouds below, her mind racing. This was no longer just about making it to a meeting. This was about justice, ethics, and whether she could, in good conscience, help a company that allowed such treatment to go unchecked. As the plane began its descent into Chicago, Maya Johnson made a decision that would change everything. Maya's phone buzzed the moment her plane touched down in Chicago. It was nearly 9 p.m., and her screen lit up with notifications, missed calls, text messages, emails, and social media alerts. The videos of her removal from the SkyRoute flight had spread faster than she could have imagined. She collected her carry-on and moved through O'Hare Airport with her head held high, though her insides felt hollow. Each glance from strangers made her wonder if they recognized her from the videos. "Dr. Johnson?" A driver in a black suit waited at arrivals. "I'm from Wilson and Reed. The partners asked me to bring you directly to the hotel." In the back of the town car, Maya finally had a moment to assess the damage. The first call she returned was to Richard Wilson, the founding partner of her firm. "Maya, I've seen the videos," he said, skipping any greeting. "This is a delicate situation. How are you holding up?" "I'm fine," she answered automatically, the way professional black women often did after facing discrimination. "Good, good. Now listen, tomorrow's meeting is still on. Pinnacle Holdings hasn't said anything about the incident. Their legal team probably doesn't even know yet." Maya's grip tightened on her phone. "Richard, SkyRoute Airlines is owned by Pinnacle. The company I'm supposed to help acquire tomorrow kicked me off their plane today because of my race." A pause. "Yes, that's unfortunate timing. But Maya, this is a $280 million deal. Your work on this has been exceptional. Don't let one bad experience with some low-level employees derail everything." Maya watched the Chicago skyline through the car window. Low-level employees don't make these decisions without company culture permitting it. "We can discuss compensation adjustments for your trouble," Richard continued as if she hadn't spoken. "But the client needs this deal to close. You need this deal to close if partnership is still your goal." The threat was thinly veiled. Maya thanked him and ended the call. At the downtown hotel, the front desk clerk recognized her name immediately. "Dr. Johnson, we've upgraded you to a suite, and this was delivered for you an hour ago. The clerk handed her a heavy cream envelope with the Pinnacle Holdings logo embossed in gold. Inside her suite, Maya opened it to find a handwritten note from CEO James Barrett. Dr. Johnson, I've been made aware of an unfortunate incident on one of our subsidiary airlines today. Please accept my sincere apologies along with this token of our regret. I look forward to our productive meeting tomorrow. Attached was a check for $50,000. Maya stared at it for a long moment before setting it aside. They thought they could buy her silence with what amounted to pocket change in a $280 million deal. Opening her laptop, she began researching everything she could find about Skyroute Airlines. Their diversity statistics were abysmal compared to industry standards. Former employees had shared stories on job review sites about a toxic culture. There had been 3 discrimination lawsuits in the past 5 years, all quietly settled. Most importantly, Skyroute was struggling financially. This acquisition would save them, injecting much-needed capital while hiding their troubled history under Pinnacle's larger corporate umbrella. At midnight, Maya's phone rang again. It was Darren Reed, the other founding partner. Maya, I heard what happened. Terrible business. Barrett called me personally to smooth things over. Did he tell you they've had multiple discrimination complaints? Maya asked. That's not relevant to our work, Reed replied. Look, I know you're upset, but remember where your loyalties lie. You represent Wilson and Reed tomorrow, not your personal grievances. After hanging up, Maya stood at the window overlooking the city. In 12 hours, she would walk into a meeting with the power to halt a $280 million deal that a discriminatory company desperately needed. For the first time since being escorted off that plane, Maya Johnson smiled. Morning light streamed through the hotel windows as Maya sipped her coffee. She had slept barely 3 hours, spending most of the night researching Skyroute Airlines and preparing for the day ahead. Her firm had sent over the final acquisition documents at 5 a.m., expecting her to review them before the 10 a.m. meeting. The message was clear: proceed as planned despite yesterday's incident. But Maya had other ideas. She opened her laptop and logged into LexisNexis, an expensive legal database her firm subscribed to. As one of the top attorneys in mergers and acquisitions, Maya had access to corporate records most people would never see. Let's find out who you really are, she murmured, typing Skyroute Airlines plus discrimination into the search bar. The results were worse than she expected. Behind the carefully crafted public image of Skyroute lay a troubling pattern. In the last 7 years, the airline had faced 11 discrimination lawsuits from both passengers and employees. All had been settled with strict confidentiality agreements. Maya dug deeper, downloading court filings and company records. In one case, a black flight attendant had been fired after complaining about racial slurs from a supervisor. In another, a Middle Eastern family had been removed from a flight because a passenger claimed they looked suspicious. This isn't a few bad employees, Maya realized. This is systematic. Her phone rang. It was Lisa Chen, her most trusted colleague at the firm. Maya, are you okay? I saw the videos. What they did to you was awful. I'm fine, Maya said automatically, then caught herself. Actually, no, I'm angry, Lisa, and I'm discovering that what happened to me wasn't an isolated incident. She briefed Lisa on her findings, including the most damning discovery. Skyroute's internal training materials contain coded language about identifying passengers who might make others uncomfortable. The problem is, this deal would erase all of it, Maya explained. Pinnacle Holdings would absorb Skyroute, rebrand the airline, and all these discrimination issues would disappear into corporate history. What are you planning to do? Lisa asked cautiously. Something my firm won't like. After hanging up, Maya received a text from the hotel concierge informing her that a package had arrived. Downstairs, she was handed a large box with Pinnacle Holdings logo. Inside was an expensive designer suit in exactly her size, with another note from CEO Barrett. For our meeting. Looking forward to putting yesterday's unfortunate incident behind us and focusing on our bright future together. Maya's phone buzzed with an incoming call from an unknown number. Dr. Johnson, this is Terrence Washington from the Chicago Tribune. We're running a story about what happened to you on that Skyroute flight. Would you care to comment? Maya took a deep breath. Not at this time, Mr. Washington. but you might want to look into SkyRoute's history of discrimination complaints. We're already on it, the reporter replied. But there's something else you should know. Our business desk has been tracking this acquisition for months. Pinnacle desperately needs this deal to go through. They've overextended themselves financially, and SkyRoute is their ticket to securing a major international route package worth billions. Maya thanked him for the information and ended the call. The picture was becoming clearer. Pinnacle wasn't just acquiring a troubled airline, they were gambling their future on it. In her hotel room, Maya laid out two outfits on the bed, her own navy blue suit that she had packed, and the new designer suit sent by Barrett. The choice represented the decision before her: play by their rules or stand her ground. At 9:30 a.m., Maya Johnson stepped out of the elevator wearing her own suit, carrying a leather portfolio containing not just the acquisition documents, but evidence of SkyRoute's discriminatory practices. As her car pulled up to Pinnacle's headquarters, Maya noticed protesters gathering outside. Signs reading "Boycott SkyRoute" and "Stop Flying While Black" waved in the morning breeze. News vans lined the street. She straightened her shoulders and walked toward the entrance. Inside that building, executives were waiting for her to help save their $280 million deal. They had no idea she was about to change everything. Maya paused in the lobby of Pinnacle Holdings' gleaming headquarters. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a stunning view of Chicago's skyline, but her focus remained on the leather portfolio in her hands. It contained two sets of documents: the acquisition papers everyone expected her to present, and the evidence of SkyRoute's discriminatory practices that no one expected. Dr. Johnson, a young woman in a tailored suit, approached. "I'm Emma Barnes, Mr. Barrett's executive assistant. Everyone is waiting for you in the conference room." Maya followed Emma through security and into an elevator that required a keycard to access the executive floors. As they ascended, Emma spoke in a hushed tone. "I just want to say, I saw what happened to you. It was horrible. Not everyone here supports how SkyRoute operates." Before Maya could respond, the elevator doors opened to reveal a reception area where Richard Wilson, her firm's founding partner, was waiting. His smile seemed strained. "Maya, good to see you made it." He gripped her elbow firmly as they walked. "I need 2 minutes before we go in." He guided her to a small side office and closed the door. "Listen carefully," Richard said, dropping all pretense of pleasantries. "I know you're upset about yesterday, but this is business, not personal. This deal represents $4.3 million in fees for our firm, and your partnership vote is next month." Maya met his gaze steadily. "Are you threatening me, Richard?" "I'm reminding you of priorities. Barrett called me this morning. They're prepared to offer you a personal settlement of $150,000 in addition to that check they already sent. Sign an NDA, forget the incident, and help close this deal." Maya felt a cold anger rising. "So I should ignore evidence of systematic discrimination because it's profitable?" Richard's expression hardened. "You should remember who you work for. 12 years at this firm, Maya. Don't throw it away over one bad flight." A text alert sounded on Richard's phone. He glanced at it and frowned. "The news coverage is spreading. Let's get this done before it affects market confidence." They walked in silence to the conference room where 8 people sat around a mahogany table. James Barrett, Pinnacle's CEO, rose to greet her. "Dr. Johnson, thank you for joining us despite yesterday's regrettable incident." The room felt tense. Maya recognized several executives from both Pinnacle and SkyRoute. Their expressions ranged from embarrassment to barely concealed annoyance. Barrett continued, "Before we begin, I want to assure you that the employees involved have been suspended pending investigation. Now, shall we proceed with the acquisition discussion?" Maya took the seat at the table that had been left for her. Opening her portfolio, she withdrew the official acquisition documents and set them on the table. Everyone visibly relaxed. Then she withdrew the second stack of papers. "Before we proceed, I'd like to address some concerns about SkyRoute Airlines that directly impact this acquisition's viability." Richard stiffened beside her. Barrett's smile faded. "Is this really necessary?" asked a woman Maya recognized as SkyRoute's chief operations officer. "We've acknowledged the incident and taken action." "This goes beyond one incident," Maya replied, her voice calm but firm. I've uncovered a pattern of discrimination that presents significant legal and financial liability for any acquiring company. She began distributing copies of her findings. The room grew uncomfortably quiet as executives flipped through the documents. Barrett cleared his throat. Dr. Johnson, while we appreciate your thoroughness, perhaps we could discuss these concerns privately after the main business is concluded. Maya felt a moment of genuine hesitation. Everything she had worked for professionally was on this table. The partnership she had pursued for years, her reputation in corporate law, financial security. She thought of the woman who had spoken up for her on the plane, of Emma's whispered support in the elevator, of the protesters outside holding signs. Mr. Barrett, she said finally, I see three paths forward. We can proceed with the acquisition as planned, ignoring these issues. We can withdraw from negotiations entirely. Or, she paused, gathering her courage, we can restructure this deal to address the systemic problems at Skyroute before moving forward. Richard's hand gripped her wrist under the table in warning. The executives exchanged glances. Maya's future hung in the balance as she waited for their response. The tension in the conference room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Maya felt all eyes on her as she waited for someone to break the silence. Richard's grip on her wrist had tightened to the point of discomfort. James Barrett was the first to speak. Dr. Johnson, I understand you've had a personal experience that was upsetting. But these documents you presented, many of these cases were settled years ago. Skyroute has made improvements since then. With all due respect, Mr. Barrett, Maya replied, gently pulling her arm free from Richard's grasp. My research shows otherwise. The most recent incident was just 3 months ago, and their training materials were updated last quarter with the same problematic language. Richard cleared his throat. Perhaps we could take a brief recess to discuss. No, Maya interrupted, surprising even herself with her firmness. I think we need to address this now, together, with everyone at the table. She turned to face the Skyroute executives directly. When I was removed from your aircraft yesterday, I was humiliated not because I'm sensitive, but because I was treated as less than human. As I dug deeper, I discovered this wasn't an isolated incident, but part of a pattern that represents serious liability for any acquiring company. The Skyroute TOO leaned forward, her expression defensive. These incidents represent a tiny fraction of our operations. We fly thousands of flights daily. One is too many, Maya countered. And your settlement history suggests you're aware of the problem, but choose to hide it rather than fix it. Barrett exchanged glances with his CFO, who had been frantically writing notes. The CFO slid a paper toward him, and Barrett frowned as he read it. What exactly are you proposing, Dr. Johnson? Barrett asked, his tone more cautious now. Maya opened another folder and removed a document she had prepared during her sleepless night. I've drafted a modified acquisition agreement that includes specific terms addressing these issues. She began to outline her proposal: mandatory anti-bias training for all staff, revamped company policies, diverse hiring goals, an independent oversight committee, and public transparency reporting. Additionally, she continued, any employees with multiple discrimination complaints would be subject to review, including those in management positions who have enabled this culture. The Skyroute CEO finally spoke, his face flushed with anger. This is extortion. You're holding a multi-million-dollar deal hostage over personal grievances. Maya met his gaze calmly. This isn't personal. It's ethical legal practice. These issues represent significant financial and reputational risk that must be accounted for in any responsible acquisition. Richard stood up. Maya, a word outside. Now. No, Richard. I'm doing my job, protecting our client from acquiring undisclosed liability. She turned back to Barrett. Mr. Barrett, your company stands to gain international routes worth billions through this acquisition, but you'll also inherit every lawsuit waiting to happen if Skyroute's practices don't change. The room fell silent again. The Pinnacle executives huddled together, whispering intensely. Richard had turned an alarming shade of red, while the Skyroute executives looked increasingly uncomfortable. After what felt like an eternity, Barrett straightened in his chair. Dr. Johnson, your points have merit from a risk management perspective. However, these additional terms would significantly alter the deal structure we've been negotiating for months. Maya didn't waver. Yes, they would, because the company you're acquiring isn't the company you thought it was. Barrett studied her for a long moment. We'll need time to review these proposals. Of course, Maya replied, but I should inform you that I've already shared my concerns with my colleagues at Wilson and Reed. If I'm removed from this negotiation, the ethical issues I've raised won't disappear. It was a bluff. She hadn't actually shared the information widely, but it worked. Barrett nodded slowly. We'll reconvene after lunch to discuss your proposed modifications. He stood, signaling the end of the morning session. Dr. Johnson, I appreciate your thoroughness, even if the timing is challenging. As the executives filed out, Richard grabbed Maya's arm. You just committed career suicide, he. The afternoon sun slanted through the conference room windows as Maya returned from a solitary lunch. She had used the break to call Lisa, briefing her on what had happened and asking her to secure certain documents in case things went south. They might fire me today, Maya had told her friend. They'd be fools to do that, Lisa replied. But I got your back either way. Now, as executives filed back into the room, Maya noted their expressions. The Pinnacle team looked calculating, while the SkyRoute representatives seemed openly hostile. Richard entered last, pointedly taking a seat far from Maya. James Barrett called the meeting to order. We've reviewed your proposed modifications, Dr. Johnson. While we appreciate your concerns, we find many of these terms excessive and potentially punitive. Maya had expected this. Which terms specifically do you find problematic, Mr. Barrett? For starters, the Independent Oversight Committee with public reporting requirements. SkyRoute is a private company, not a government agency. It would remain private, Maya clarified. But transparency creates accountability. Without it, the pattern continues. The SkyRoute CEO, Michael Reynolds, slammed his hand on the table. This is ridiculous. You're leveraging one unfortunate incident into demands that would cost millions to implement. One incident. Maya removed her phone and placed it on the table. While we were on break, I received 17 emails from former SkyRoute employees offering to testify about discriminatory practices they witnessed or experienced. 17 in just 2 hours. She paused to let that sink in. And 3 major civil rights organizations have reached out asking to speak with me about potential class action lawsuits. News travels fast, Mr. Reynolds. The CFO of Pinnacle whispered urgently to Barrett, who frowned deeply. What else arrived during lunch? Barrett asked carefully, was a revised valuation from our financial team. The negative publicity from yesterday's incident has already impacted SkyRoute's brand value. Early estimates suggest a 4% drop in advance bookings. Reynolds paled visibly. Maya knew SkyRoute operated on razor-thin margins. Even a small drop in bookings could be devastating. This deal is still valuable to both parties, Maya said, keeping her voice level, but only if we address the underlying issues. Otherwise, Pinnacle is just buying a ticking time bomb of liability. Barrett studied her thoughtfully. You're in a unique position, Dr. Johnson. You've experienced SkyRoute's problems firsthand, yet you're still here negotiating this deal. Why not walk away completely? It was a fair question. Maya took a moment before answering. Because walking away changes nothing. Another lawyer would take my place, the deal would go through, and SkyRoute's problems would become Pinnacle's problems, hidden under a new name. This is a chance to create actual change. Richard finally spoke up. Maya doesn't speak for Wilson and Reed on this matter. We're prepared to assign another partner to complete the original agreement. Barrett raised his hand to silence Richard. That won't be necessary, he turned to Reynolds. Michael, the reality is that SkyRoute needs this acquisition more than Pinnacle needs SkyRoute. Reynolds' face flushed with anger. We have other options. Do you? Barrett asked coolly. Your company has been shopping for a buyer for 18 months. You're 3/4 away from possible bankruptcy. And now you have a PR crisis that's growing by the hour. The room fell silent. Maya realized Barrett was actually considering her terms. Reynolds stood abruptly. This is coercion. We're being strong-armed because of one incident with an entitled passenger who happens to be a lawyer. Maya didn't take the bait. Instead, she opened her laptop and turned it to face the room. This is what's happening outside right now. On the screen was a live news broadcast showing the protest outside the building, which had grown substantially. Signs with hashtag Justice for Maya and End Discrimination at Skyroute filled the frame. This isn't going away, Maya said quietly, but it can be transformed from a crisis into an opportunity for leadership. Barrett studied the screen, then looked at Maya with new respect. Give us the room, please. Just Pinnacle executives. As Maya gathered her things to leave, Barrett added, Dr. Johnson, please wait in my office. I think we need to continue this conversation, just you and me. Richard moved to follow her, but Barrett stopped him. Alone, please. Maya walked out, her heart pounding. The standoff had reached its critical moment, and everything hung in the balance. 6 months had passed since that tense day in the Pinnacle Holdings conference room. Maya stood at the window of her new corner office, watching planes take off and land at O'Hare Airport in the distance. Each aircraft now bore the rebranded logo of Horizon Airlines, formerly Skyroute, with its new tagline, Soaring Together. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Lisa entered, carrying a sleek folder. The quarterly diversity report is ready for your review, Lisa said, placing it on Maya's desk. The numbers are even better than projected. Maya smiled. Let me guess, Reynolds is claiming credit again? Actually, no. He's been surprisingly quiet since his demotion. After Barrett had summoned Maya to his office that pivotal day, everything had changed. Their private conversation had lasted nearly 3 hours, moving from tense negotiation to genuine dialogue about corporate responsibility. By the end, Barrett had not only agreed to Maya's terms but had gone further, proposing a complete overhaul of Skyroute's management structure. The $280 million acquisition had proceeded, but with significant modifications. The Independent Oversight Committee was established with Maya as its chair. Michael Reynolds was removed as CEO of Skyroute and reassigned to a non-public-facing role. Most importantly, the flight attendants who had discriminated against Maya were terminated, along with several managers who had enabled similar incidents. The story had dominated business news for weeks. Attorney turns discrimination into corporate transformation, read one headline. How one black woman halted and reshaped a $280 million deal, proclaimed another. Maya picked up the diversity report and flipped through it. Employee complaints were down 78%. Customer satisfaction scores had improved by 23%. The airline had hired its most diverse class of flight attendants in its history. Her desk phone buzzed. Dr. Johnson, James Barrett is here to see you. Barrett entered with the confident stride of a man whose gamble had paid off handsomely. Pinnacle's stock had initially dipped after the modified acquisition, but had rebounded strongly as the new Horizon Airlines became a case study in corporate transformation. Maya, he greeted her warmly. The board just finished reviewing the quarterly results. They're thrilled. Good news travels fast, Maya replied, gesturing for him to sit. Barrett nodded. Faster than bad news, thankfully. We've recaptured the market share we lost and then some. Turns out passengers appreciate an airline that takes diversity seriously. And employees who feel respected perform better, Maya added. Who would have thought? They shared a knowing smile. Both remembered how differently this could have gone. I have something for you, Barrett said, handing her an envelope. Just delivered by courier. Inside was a handwritten note from Karen, the flight attendant who had started the incident 6 months ago. She had been one of the first employees terminated. Dr. Johnson, the note read, I've had a lot of time to reflect on my actions that day. No excuses. I was wrong, and I'm truly sorry for how I treated you. The training program you established for the industry is making a real difference. Thank you for turning a terrible incident into positive change. Maya set the letter down, unexpectedly moved. There's something else I want to discuss, Barrett said. The board has approved expanding the oversight model to all Pinnacle subsidiaries. We'd like you to lead the implementation. Maya raised an eyebrow. That's a significant commitment. So was walking into that conference room 6 months ago with your alternative proposal, Barrett countered. Sometimes the most difficult stands create the greatest opportunities. The intercom buzzed again. Dr. Johnson, your 4 o'clock is waiting. Maya stood, smoothing her jacket, a student group from Howard University Law School. They're doing a case study on corporate ethics. Barrett rose as well, Tell them the real story, how you turn discrimination into transformation by refusing to choose between your principles and your profession. As Barrett left, Maya gathered her notes for the student presentation. Outside her window, a Horizon Airlines plane took off, rising swiftly into the clear blue sky. 6 months ago, she had boarded a flight as a passenger and been humiliated. Today, she helped steer the company's moral compass. She had not only halted a $280 million deal but had transformed it into something more valuable, a model for change that would impact thousands of employees and millions of passengers for years to come. Maya Johnson smiled as she headed to meet the future lawyers waiting for her. Some victories were worth every risk.